Hi, I'm Mike Swanson. This video is designed to help plaintiff lawyers understand the concept of net worth, how to acquire net worth, why it's important for your family and for your law firm. And to get into the details on that, I've invited Paul Myers, our Chief Credit Officer, to join us. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for taking time out from your day. I know you and your team are very busy evaluating law firm balance sheets and income statements and tax returns. In fact, Paul and I are 2/3 of the credit committee, and Paul's team has been evaluating law firms now every day, 5 days a week for over 20 years. So there is a depth of knowledge here that's really not found, I don't think, anywhere else. We often get questions about net worth. So before we get started on that, I don't want to assume that anybody knows what we mean by that. So Paul, what is net worth?
Well, Mike, very simply, it's what you own minus the amount that you owe on that. So your assets less the debt that you owe.
Less the liabilities. Great. And of course, we know that building net worth outside the law firm is important for plaintiff lawyers personally, because that's how you retire someday. You may not want to retire, but you want to have the option to retire. So that's always a good thing. And building net worth outside the law firm gives you that ability, and it's better for your family and ultimately for the law firm. Paul, why might, from a business perspective, a plaintiff law firm want to make sure they're building up net worth?
Well, from our perspective, one thing that we've learned after doing this for 20 years is that the only certainty in plaintiff law practice is the lack thereof. And it's going to be inevitable that you're going to have economic downturns, you're going to lose cases, you're going to have quarters or perhaps years that don't go the way that you want them to. And having that cushion, if you will, that net worth provides, having assets that you can lever or liquidate in order to stay afloat is very important.
How does Advocate evaluate?
Well, we look at both the firm and the individual. At the firm level, you add all the assets together: operating cash, equipment, real estate that may be owned by the firm, fees receivable on settled cases, case expenses that the firm has invested in currently active cases, and then you deduct out line of credit balances, credit cards the firm may owe, accounts payable, and any other debt. On the individual level, same principle, but it's usually more real estate, cash, savings accounts, IRAs, other retirement accounts, college savings accounts, then deduct out mortgages, student loans, credit cards, and other lines of credit.
Paul, are there certain assets that we deduct out of the net worth and don't count?
Of course. On the individual level, jewelry collections, art, other intangible assets or non-leverageable assets, closely held stocks, the value of the law firm, if you list that on your personal financial statement, we do deduct that out. Amounts owed to the firm by the partners or amounts owed to the firm by other employees. Estimated future value of the cases, we don't include that as an asset. And assets that may be held solely by a partner's spouse.
By a spouse, because they're probably not a guarantor. That makes sense.
Right.
And, I speak to law firms like you do on a regular basis, and they are a little confused why we don't count the value of the law firm. Certainly, a law firm has value. You can sell a law firm for some number, and it's worth a lot to the owner of the law firm. But what they don't understand is that you can't easily liquidate or lever that if you have a downturn. And boy, 2020 was the year that we all found out that bad things can happen to good people. So that can be a little confusing to people that we don't count the value of the law firm normally. Are there certain assets that may not be in the balance sheet that we would add in?
The most frequent one that we add in will be the case expenses that a law firm has invested in currently active cases, particularly if we are paying off other debt on the balance sheet as a part of our initial funding.
Okay, that makes sense. And what if the liabilities on the personal financial statement do not match the credit report?
In order to be conservative, we use the greater of the two. You'll list all of your liabilities on your personal financial statement. We also pull a personal credit report, which gives total liabilities for you as an individual, and we use the greater of those two.
Yeah. One of the most common things, I think you'll agree, that people forget to put on their personal financial statement is student debt. That happens a lot, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, for some reason they don't show that. Of course, we see that on the credit reports. Well, we've, I think, used the term leverage here somewhere. What is leverage?
Again, very simple concept. It's the percentage of liabilities relative to debt. For example, if someone has $1 million in assets that they own and have $500,000 in liabilities or debt, they have a 50% leverage ratio. And the lower that ratio, of course, the better.
The better, right? Because the less, indebted they are relative to their assets.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the IOLTA account. Although the IOLTA funds don't belong to the law firm, we often see IOLTA assets and liabilities on a balance sheet. What are some peculiarities of that?
Well, technically, it should have no impact on net worth because from a GAAP perspective, the IOLTA asset should be equal to the IOLTA liability. Therefore, the net worth impact is zero. One impact it can have if you're dealing with a lender that does not have a lot of exposure to plaintiff firms is it can artificially inflate the firm's leverage because if you have because those IOLTA assets tend to be very large relative to other assets on the balance sheet. And so if you have equal amount of debt on that asset, which is technically the way it should be, it's going to overinflate the leverage.
Yep, absolutely. So if you're working with a non-law firm type lender, you might want to point that out that these assets and liabilities are here, but really you shouldn't count them toward my leverage ratio. That makes sense. Well, we've agreed that net worth is a good thing to have, not the most important thing in the world, but it's a bit good for your family, good for your business to build up your net worth. What are some of the steps that a law firm or a lawyer rather can take to start acquiring net worth?
Well, the first thing is to try to take money out of your business and put it into your personal pocket on occasion. I know that's hard sometimes to do. You want to grow your business, but on occasion you need to do that. And then when you do that, make sure that you invest in tangible assets, real estate, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, publicly traded, cash accounts, savings, and also use it to pay down debt. All of those items will enable you to build net worth.
Yeah. So don't go out and buy a bunch of paintings.
Correct.
I mean, you can if you want to, but it's going to be your lender is not going to be impressed by that, and probably won't count the value of that if you're looking to access capital in the markets. What are some of the common mistakes that you've seen, Paul, that law firms make with regard to net worth?
Well, I think the main thing are some of the items you just mentioned, Mike, is buying depreciating assets like car collections or non-leverageable intangible assets like watch collections or fine art. Again, there's nothing wrong with that if you're an enthusiast, but I think you need to understand that most financial institutions are not going to look at those as true leverageable intangible assets when calculating net worth.
Right. They may work out for you from a speculation standpoint someday, but your lender is not going to look at that very favorably. Well, great. How can an independent financial advisor help?
Well, bringing somebody with knowledge of the marketplace onto your team could be very valuable. They're going to help you guide those expendable assets that you take out of your firm into more tangible, long-term growth assets the financial institutions are going to look at favorably when calculating net worth. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, retirement accounts, college savings accounts, things along those lines that really add value.
Right. And a shameless plug here, we have a wealth management team here at Advocate. And to learn about that, visit advocatecapital.com/wealth management. Well, Paul, thanks again for your time today to help us learn about net worth and why it's important for lawyers and for the law firms. Have a great day.
Same to you, Mike. Thank you.